access her yoga sessions. And she'll also share more information about her business and what she does. And then you'll also be able to access our session with Lincoln and the meditation that we'll do with Calm. You'll be able to access our master class and tasting with Revel speakers. You'll be able to come back and hear Elena Nichols and Deidre DeLilly from Toyota talk about how they are so inspired by people who have less ability than others and are able to overcome amazing odds and do amazing things. And then finally, we'll wrap up with Volkswagen and Stacy Banner of Banner Toys, and she's going to talk about how she started her business and many of the challenges that she had. And Volkswagen's going to talk about their challenges too in building this amazing car for families and for small businesses and for others who need a lot of flexibility and people who multitask. And I don't think I know anybody who multitasks anymore. So I feel like that's all we do. So be sure to stick around through the end of each session because we have a giveaway. Not on the yoga session, but on all the other sessions, we are going to be giving away a raffle. It's a random drawing of a prize, and we're going to draw from the people who are live on the session. You must be present to win. So if you don't hear your name, then that's because you're not here. And so we're going to go ahead and draw another name. So stick around to the very end of each session. We have some fabulous prizes to give away. And everybody who attends most of the day, 3+ sessions is what we asked for, we are sending an amazing swag bag. So those are going to go in the mail starting tomorrow. We've got over 250 of them to mail out. I think everybody who attends will get one. So just be sure that you are around for most of the day. We're getting started now. We've got 5 hours of great programming ahead of us. And with that, I'm going to bring in, oh, by the way, if you have questions for our speakers, put them in the chat box. We will be monitoring the chat all day long and bringing your questions. We'll, of course, ask your question by name. So we'll name you and so the speaker can know who's asking the question. And we will be monitoring that all day. So if you have any questions for us, questions for the speakers, comments that you'd like to share, our speakers love to hear your comments. So be sure to just put your notes right there in the chat box. And welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. With that, I'm going to introduce Abby Bassett. Abby also is an automotive journalist, and she is, has become a friend and also is a yoga instructor. And so let's see, I'm waiting for Abby to join. Let's see, I see her here under panelists, and I'm gonna make her co-host. There she is. Good morning, Abby. Good morning.
Sorry about that. I had my camera off and I had no idea. It's, you know, technology a little bit dicey sometimes.
Technology is the thing, right? So with that, everyone, welcome Abby. I am going to shut off my camera and put it on speaker view and let Abby take it over.
So thank you for joining me this morning. I know it's been a little bit different in that we're all sort of joining virtually, and that can really cause a bunch of problems, cause a bunch of issues, as you saw, technology, of course. But today what we're going to work with is sort of that idea of the impossible, of how to break down those things that happen in our lives, whether it's fighting with technology or figuring out how to school our kids at home, figuring out how to sort of live in this new now. And today's class is going to be themed around achieving the impossible. And while that may sound like a big, scary sort of theme, I promise it's not. We're going to work through some practice that will get you into your body, get you to connect to your, and potentially get you into a pose that you've never tried before. And one thing to know about the yoga that I teach is I call it yoga for normal people. You don't have to be an advanced yogi. You don't have to know the names of the poses. So don't worry, I will be right here to support you through this process. So first things first, what I'd like you to do is come down to sit on your mat or your towel, whatever you happen to be practicing on. I actually have a little towel here. If you'd like to grab one, feel free. You may use it to pad your knees, or if you are a practitioner of yoga and have some of the traditional yoga props, if you will, so blocks or bolsters or blankets, and you want to use those, feel free at any time. You can also modify any of these poses if they don't feel quite right in your body. And that's the most important thing, is to listen to how your body feels as we move through this practice. So come down to sit however you'd like, whether you'd like to sit cross-legged or with your legs out in front of you, or if you're feeling like you want to start in a chair today, that's totally okay. And as you come down to sit, we're going to work on a little bit of a breathing technique that will help us get into our body first thing this morning. So take your hands to your thighs or your knees, whatever's comfortable for you. Draw your shoulder blades back and down so that you have lots of space between the base of your ears and the tops of your shoulders. And then gently just close your eyes and begin to just go inside and notice what your breath is doing in this moment. So we just started this event this morning, so you may be a little bit excited. You may notice that you're breathing very shallowly towards the top of your body. And what I'd like you to do is just start to see if you can relax the belly and begin to draw the breath slightly deeper down into the pelvis, as if you're trying to fill the pelvis with air. And see if you can extend the length of your exhale just a little bit. We'll just take 2 more breaths connecting to our bodies in this way. And then what I'd like you to do is collectively inhale to prepare. So draw all the air in, all the way until you feel so full you can't take any more in. And then take a deep exhale. Really sigh it out and let go. I'd like you to inhale for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold at the top for 3, 2, 1. And exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold for 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold at the top for 3, 2, 1. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the bottom. 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold at the top. 3, 2, and 1. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the bottom. 3, 2, and 1. And just return to your normal breath. That's a technique called box breathing. And if you imagine, as you inhale, you're moving up one side of the box, holding at the corner, moving across, holding at the corner, moving down, holding at the corner, and then moving across. And it helps us just settle into our bodies and notice what's going on. So take a few deep breaths here. And then when you're ready, just gently open up the eyes and roll your shoulders down and back and just connect to the space outside of you. Notice what's happening around you. Just notice if you feel the sense of air on your skin, the sense of your clothing. And then when you're ready, go ahead and come around onto your knees. So we're going to come into a low kneeling position. If this is uncomfortable for you, you can stay seated any way you like. And on your inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead, reach the palms towards one another. And then exhale, press that air back down. Inhale, turn the palms up, reach up. Exhale, press down. One more time, inhale to reach up. Exhale to press down. We're gonna come into a quick child's pose. So take your hands underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips, and then walk your hands slightly out in front of you and press down and away into the mat, sinking your hips towards your heels, letting your forehead move towards the earth. See if you can find that link between the base of the armpit and the base or the top of the rib cage. Take a couple of breaths here. And then gently pick up that left hand and walk it over towards your right, stacking it on top, interlacing the fingers. And then just sending that left hip down towards your heel, taking a nice little side stretch. You can let your forehead move towards the mat. You can also do this in a seated position as well. On your next inhale, go ahead and walk your fingertips back towards the center of your mat and pick up your right hand, stack your right hand on top of your left, and then sink that right hip down towards your heel. Again, stretching into that right side of the body, finding length from the base of your armpit to the top of your hip bone. And then inhale to come back to center. Press down into your palms, shift your shoulders forward so they come to stack over your wrists. And then if your knees have scooched behind your hips, just walk them in slightly. From here, on your next inhale, you're gonna lift your head, lift your tail towards the sky, let your belly hang low. So you're almost like creating this hammock shape with your belly. And then on your exhale, round through the spine, draw your belly button towards your spine, and come into what's called a cat shape. So if you've seen those Halloween cats, you can imagine this is the shape they make with their backs. Inhale, lift your head, lift your tail. This pose is called cow. And exhale, round through the spine. This is called cat. So with your breath, with that same connective breath, move at your own pace. It can be quick, it can be slow. Just finding what feels good in your body. And you don't have to stay static and stacked. You can actually kind of move the hips around, you can wiggle, you can sit your hips back towards your heels. Just taking a little bit of this organic movement. So a lot of times we are disconnected from our bodies, especially when we're working really hard towards a goal, especially when we're trying to achieve the impossible, trying to move through something that feels really hard. But by breaking it down into steps that are incredibly easy to understand or really small things, we can eventually get to whatever that impossible thing is. Take a few more of those organic cat-cows. And then come back to center. And just take your hands slightly in front of your shoulders. And you're gonna let your hips move towards the floor, keeping your chest lifted. So only go as far as feels good in your back. If you have some back issues, you may just wanna modify this. And the best way to modify it is actually to move the hands in a bit closer and just continue with those cat-cow movements. But here, just move through these poses as if you're water moving like a wave. Just finding some nice movement that feels good, that your body's like, oh yeah, this is what I need. I'm gonna listen to you right now. I'm gonna tune in. I'm gonna see what feels good. And once you've done those little bits of movement here, just allowing the hips to move towards the mat, lifting the heart, and then exhaling to draw back. We'll come back to hands and knees. And if your knees are starting to bother you, feel free to grab that towel and just place it underneath your knees so you have a nice padded place to be. Once you've set yourself back up in tabletop pose, you're going to take that right foot back towards the back of the mat. Toes are pointing down, and foot is resting on the mat. On your next inhale, go ahead and engage through that back line of the right leg, and you're going to lift towards the sky and flex the foot. See if you can get that heel right in line with the base of the pelvis, like you're standing on that wall. Take an inhale here and notice how your weight may shift over to the left. See if you can just balance it out and keep it even across both left and right. And then exhale to release that right knee down. Inhale to take the left foot back, toes rest on the floor. And then when you're ready, engage from the low butt and the back of your thigh and lift that leg up and off the mat. Toes again point down. Flex through the sole of the foot, and notice now that you've probably shifted over to the right. See if you can center your body and evenly distribute your weight between both hands. And make sure that that foot doesn't just kind of relax and fall towards the floor. Lift so that the heel and the pelvis are in one straight line. And then exhale, release. Inhale to take the right foot back. Exhale to lift it off the mat. And here, go ahead and ground down into that right hand. Take your left fingertips towards the front of your mat. And then inhale to lift that left arm, lift that left leg, right leg rather. Yoga teachers often get confused as to right and left. Just ask my boyfriend when we're in the car and I try to make him turn left or right. He's like, which right or left do you mean? Take an inhale. And then exhale, release. Other side, take that left foot back. Take that right hand slightly forward, fingertips resting on the mat. And then on your inhale, lift both arm and leg, really reaching through the crown of the head, through the fingertips, and the sole of the foot. Take an inhale here, and then exhale to release. We're gonna do that one more time. Take that right foot back. Take your left fingertips forward. And then inhale, lift arm, lift leg. Bend your right knee so that the sole of the foot goes towards the sky. And then see if you can reach back with that left hand to find that right foot. Once you're here, you'll notice your shoulders have shifted over towards the left. Press the foot into the hand, lift through the chest, and see if you can square the shoulders towards the mat. Take an inhale. And on your exhale, go ahead and release. Come back to center. Inhale to take the left foot back and take the right hand forward. Exhale, lift the left foot and the right hand. Find that length. And if you like, you can stay right here. This is a perfectly great position to be in. If you'd like to add on, bend that left knee, reach that right hand back, see if you can find that foot, press the foot into the hand, see if you can do it without wobbling, and then square the shoulders toward the mat. Take an inhale here, and then on your exhale, go ahead and release. Once again, revisit those cat-cow movements. Just loosening up some of the low back stuff, maybe doing circles with the hips. Maybe even shifting your hands forward, letting that belly come low, like we did right at the beginning of class. And here the trick is to link your movement to your breath. So in that series of poses, we added on complexity. We added on shapes. We broke the pose down before we went into the full expression of it. And much like what we work through on our daily lives, that breakdown can be useful to help us achieve the impossible. And then once you're ready, come back to tabletop. And we're gonna come into our first downward facing dog. So downward
dog is a foundational pose. We find a lot of in yoga. And what you want to do here is press the ground down and away. Palms can either face, or fingertips can face forward, slightly off to the side, or whatever really feels good in your wrists. And here, see if you can take a bend in your knees. So your hips will lower slightly. And then just one at a time, drop one heel and then the other, taking a bend and a straighten in each knee. So it's like you're kind of marching out, stretching through the calves. You'll feel the back of your calves, the back of your hamstrings turn on. Just starting to invite some movement into the body. And then once you feel like you've pedaled out your heels enough, take your feet to hips width distance, press down actively into the mat, and see if you can bring the inner upper thighs back and apart. So as if you're spinning those inner upper thighs away. Take an inhale here. And on your exhale, bend both knees, look between your hands, and then just take a walk on up to the top of your mat so that your feet come in between your hands. Inhale to halfway lift, so lifting the torso so that it comes to or towards parallel with the earth. And then exhale, let your forehead fall towards the tops of your feet. You can choose to place your fingertips next to your feet. You can choose to take your hands to your shins, whatever you can reach. Then on your next inhale, bend your knees, sweep your arms up overhead and come up into a standing position with your arms reached high. Inhale to get long. Exhale, take your palms together and draw them down the center line of your body, letting your thumbs rest on your sternum as your sternum presses back up into your thumbs. Inhale to sweep your arms back up. Exhale, hinge at the hips and fold. Let your forehead and your crown of your head move towards the floor. Inhale to halfway lift, extend the crown of the head towards the wall in front of you. And then exhale, fold. Inhale, bend your knees, sweep your arms up and overhead. Reach up, look up. Exhale, draw your palms together, down towards the center line of your body. And let the thumbs rest on the sternum. Feel your sternum lift into your thumbs. Inhale to sweep your arms up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Torso comes to parallel. Exhale to fold. Inhale, bend your knees, sweep your arms up and overhead. And exhale, hands come down to heart center. So that's what's called a sun salutation. It's a very basic breakdown of the sun salutation. And there's versions of it that you will see and we'll work through in this practice. So we're going to build on with that. So come to the top of your mat. Take your feet to hips width distance underneath your pelvis. Inhale to sweep your arms up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, this time fingertips come down to the floor. Step your right foot back. Drop your right knee to the mat. Untuck your back toes. Inhale, take your hands to your left thigh and press those hands down into your left thigh as you lift your heart. Now here, if you'd like to feel a little bit more of a stretch into that front right hip flexor, you can walk those left toes out slightly and let the hips move more down towards the mat. So if your back is hurting you or if your knees are bothering you, just make sure that you make modifications here. Change the shape in a way that feels good. Take one more inhale here. And then on your exhale, frame that front foot. Tuck your back toes. Lift that back knee. Step back, downward facing dog. And here, once again, feel free to take the liberty to bend your knees. Pump your heels. Just kind of find a little bit of movement. These poses don't have to be static, and oftentimes they're not. That's the thing about moving through anything that you're trying to achieve. You may have these sort of signposts or stops along the way that you're like, I have to achieve that. But each time you go through the process, those stop signs might change. Those sort of points of success will change. So it doesn't have to look the same every time. On your next inhale, bend your knees, look between your hands, and take a walk up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Torso comes to or towards parallel to the earth. Exhale to fold. Let your crown of your head move towards the floor. Inhale, bend your knees, sweep your arms up and overhead. And exhale, draw your hands down, heart center. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, fingertips come down, step your left foot back this time. Drop that left knee, untuck your toes. Take your palms to the top of your right thigh. Now here, interlace your fingers, press down into that thigh and see if you can actively press down into the front of that left shin. So we're not just kind of like hanging out here, we're actually like being active in this pose. Lift your heart. And if you'd like to, you can scooch that right foot out just a little bit and let those hips sink slightly lower. Just depends on how you're feeling, especially in that front left hip flexor. So our hip flexors get really tight when we sit, and this can feel really good, but it can also be a little irritating if you're very tight. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, you're gonna frame that front foot, tuck your back toes, step your right foot back, and come back into that downward facing dog. Again, pedaling out the heels. Finding that movement. Inhale to bend both knees, look between your hands, and travel up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands come down, heart center. Inhale to sweep up. We're going to keep adding on to this sequence. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, fingertips come down. Step that right foot back. Let that right knee come to the floor. Now, what I'd like you to do is take your right hand, walk it out slightly in front of your right shoulder. And then you're gonna roll just to the outside of your right hip and let those hips come down. So I took my left hand to my right, or to my left knee, and we're just stretching into the IT band, stretching into the outer edge of the pelvis, the rib cage, the side body. Take one more inhale, and then on your exhale, come back through center. Walk your hands back, take your hands to the top of your left thigh. Actively press down, lift your heart. And then exhale, frame that front foot, tuck your back toes, lift your back knee, and step back into that downward facing dog. Take an inhale and an exhale. And on your next inhale, bend both knees, look between your hands, and exhale to travel on up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. And exhale, draw your hands down to heart center. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, fingertips come down. Step that left foot back. Your knee comes down. Untuck your toes. Take that left hand, move it slightly in front of your shoulder. Take your right hand, place it on top of your right knee. Roll to the outside edge of that left hip and let those hips move down towards the mat. You can gaze out over your right shoulder. Just take a couple of inhales and a couple of exhales. You'll feel this stretch along the outside edge of your left leg. Inhale to come back through center. Frame that front foot. Walk your fingertips back. Interlace your hands on your right leg. Press down both on your hands and through the front of your left shin. And lift your heart. Take an inhale here. And then exhale. Frame that front foot. Tuck your back toes. Lift your back knee. Step back. Downward facing dog. And in your down dog, once again, just pedal it out. Inhale and bend your knees. And on your exhale, walk up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands come down, the heart center. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, fingertips come down. Step that right foot back. And here, instead of dropping that back knee, I'd like you to keep that back knee lifted. And then engaging from the core, lift your upper body up and come into a high crescent. And if you need to, think about widening your stance from left to right. So if you feel like you're more on a balance beam, see if you can step your feet slightly wider so that you're more on railroad tracks. That'll help keep you stable. And once you have this high crescent, go ahead and take your hands, interlace them, and press down on that front thigh. So there's a slight twist to your shoulders, a slight twist to your body. Take an inhale here, and exhale, frame that front foot. Step back, downward facing dog. Inhale to bend your knees. Exhale, take a walk on up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead. And exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fingertips come down, step that left foot back. Find your high lunge. And again, creepy crawl those feet in or out to help keep your balance. Interlace your fingers, press down into your thigh, lift your heart, and see if you can imagine a string attached to the back of your left leg that's pulling that left leg towards the sky. Lift your heart. Take an inhale here, and on your exhale, frame that front foot, step back, downward facing dog. Inhale to bend your knees, look between your hands, and then take a couple steps up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift, exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead. And then exhale, hands come down, heart center. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, fingertips come down, step your right foot back. This time, spin that right heel down so that the outer edge of the back of your right foot comes to be parallel with the back of the mat. Inhale, come on up. Open your chest to the long side of your mat and find what's called Warrior Two. So in Warrior Two, we're pressing the mat down and away, but we're also engaging through the inner line of the thighs to draw towards one another. So this is a very active pose. Take your fingertips long, gaze both forward, out over towards the front of your mat. And here, make sure you're not locking out that back knee. Keep a little slight bend in it. Take an inhale here, and an exhale. And then on your next inhale, turn your front palm up towards the sky, reach up, slide your back hand down the back of your thigh. This is called reverse warrior. Take an inhale here, and then on your exhale, go ahead and spin on down. Frame that front foot, step back. If you are familiar with a vinyasa, which is where you go from a high plank into a chaturanga to an up dog, and then meet in down dog, feel free to do that, or just go straight to down dog. Take an inhale here, and an exhale. And then when you're ready, bend your knees, look between your hands. Travel to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, fingertips come down. Step that left foot back. And once again, swing that left foot down so that the back outside edge of your foot comes to or toward roughly parallel with the back of your mat. Then when you're ready, press down into the soles of your feet, bend deeply into that front knee, take your arms out long, front and back. So you're being pulled in two directions, gazing out over the front hand. Let your body settle into this pose. Feel what it feels like in this shape. Really reach. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, turn that front palm towards the sky. Reach your back hand down towards the back of your leg. Lift up. Come into this lovely reverse warrior. And then exhale, spin down, frame that front foot. And again, if you'd like to take a vinyasa, if you're feeling like you need a little heat, go ahead and feel free to move through whatever set of shapes feels good, and we'll meet in downward facing dog. Take an inhale and an exhale. Bend your knees, look between your hands, and then take a walk up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale, hands come down to heart center. So we're done with sort of the vinyasa, the movement and flow part of our practice. We're going to move into the magical pose that we're working towards today. This is a pose called dancer's pose. And there's all kinds of variations out there. There's all kinds of ways to do it. But I'm going to teach you step by step a way to get into it that should feel good after all that prep work that we just done. So your hips should feel warm, your low back should feel good, your knees, your shoulders, your body should feel open and ready to go. So what I'd like you to do is come on up to the top of your mat, feet at hips width distance. So when I say hips width distance, a lot of times we judge our hips to be a lot wider than they are. The best way to find where you're most stable is to just pick up your feet and put them down where your legs hang. Best way to get there. And then once you have that, you're going to go ahead and ground down into your left foot. So shifting your weight slightly to the left. And you're going to draw your right knee up so that your thigh comes to be parallel with the earth, similar to what we did when we were on all fours. And here, see if you can find a spot on the wall, on the floor in front of you that you can focus on to find your balance. Just be in this space for right now. And then exhale, go ahead, drop that right foot. We're gonna do the left side. Inhale, pick up that left leg. Thigh comes towards parallel with the earth. Your balance may be a little bit different on this side. Totally okay. See if you can keep that spine line and keep lifted out of your pelvis. A lot of times we tend to sink down, bend our knees, and hunch. See if you can find that length. And then exhale, place that left foot down on the mat. You're gonna go back to grounding down into the left foot. So we're gonna go lift the right leg. This time, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and instead of drawing the knee in front of you, take the knee, point it towards the floor, and draw your right heel towards your right butt cheek. And yes, that's a technical term. See if you can find that spot on the wall, that drishti, and really engage the back of that hamstring to really draw that heel towards your hip. And then exhale to release. Sometimes you may notice that cramps, totally normal, just kind of work through it. If you feel crampy, drink more water. We're gonna switch sides. Ground down into your right foot, bend your knee, draw that left heel towards your hip. And maybe if you can, your arms are long enough, because a lot of this depends on length of body parts. See if you can just reach down and tap your ankle. You may have to kind of lean over a little bit. And then come back to standing. From here, we're gonna go ahead, ground down into that left foot, same thing. Bend your right knee, draw your right heel towards your hip. And this time, see if you can grab a hold of the foot, the toes, the calf, whatever feels good. This is where your towel might come in handy. If you have a towel, if you have a strap, this works too. You can make just a little loop and use it to hook the foot if you're having a hard time reaching it. Exhale and release. We're gonna go ahead and switch to the other side. Inhale, draw that left heel towards your left butt cheek. And then see if you can reach down. Grab a hold of the ankle, the toes, whatever you can grab. So this pose is actually dancer's pose. It's the very first bus stop in the process. So you've already achieved what you may have thought was impossible. If you looked at Instagram and were like, there is no way I can ever do that pose, you're wrong. Look at what you're doing. Go ahead and release. So we're gonna add on to that just a little bit more. Ground down into your left foot, bend your right knee, and draw that foot towards your hip. Now here, whether you're using the towel or your hand, what I'd like you to do is make sure you have a good firm grip on that right foot. Keep a good spot where you can anchor your gaze in front of you. Imagine it like your goal of the impossible, whatever that thing is. Imagine it's out there in front of you and you're laser focused on it. And then, like we did when we were down on all fours, press your foot into your hand and begin to notice how your leg moves back behind you. So any stop along this path is still dancer's pose. If you'd like to add on, you can reach that left arm up towards the sky and let your torso move more towards parallel to the earth. Really press. And then exhale and release it all down. Now maybe you wobbled, maybe you fell. I can guarantee you I'm not going to be as stable on my other side. I have a bad ankle, and this is just how it is from left to right, but we're going to go ahead and do it. Ground down into that right foot. Make sure your feet are, again, underneath your hips. Bend your left knee. Draw that left foot towards your butt. And catch it any way you can, whether you're using a towel or your hand or a yoga strap. Once again, make sure you have a good firm grip. And if you're staying here, just work the balance. You may be a little tipply. That's totally okay. I'm feeling a little tipply this morning, so it is what it is on my right side. Injuries do that. Press your foot into your hand and slowly begin to allow your upper body to come to you or towards parallel with the earth. And then if you like, reach that right arm up towards the sky. Keep your gaze steady. And if you wobble, if you fall out of it, just do it. And then exhale, go ahead. Whoop. Again, see, even yoga teachers wobble. Come back to the top of your mat and realize what you've achieved. You just did a pose that you may not have tried before. Or if you're an experienced yogi, you've probably done it 100 times. You know how to make it harder. You know how to make it easier. But in the process of moving our bodies across the mat in a way that's connected and well-informed in terms of finding what feels good in our own bodies, we can achieve things that might seem impossible. So from here, inhale to sweep your arms up. And then exhale, draw your hands down to heart center, turn your toes slightly out, sink your hips towards your heels. This is what's called a Malasana Squat. So you may do this a lot if you have kids and you have to get down on the floor. My heels don't touch. I don't have a lot of flexibility in my Achilles tendons, but that's okay. And here, just shift your weight back and forth, left to right. Just a little bit of fluid movement. And then go ahead, let your butt gently, slowly come down to the earth. And we're gonna put our feet planted on the ground, knees pointed towards the sky. And then, as you're ready, just slowly allow yourself to come down to the mat. Here, take a moment, separate your feet so the outside edges come to be parallel with the outside edges of your mat. Take your hands to your belly, and then let your knees knock towards one another. This is a pose that's often referred to as constructive rest. It helps release low back, release the shoulders, release the back of the head. And then when you're ready, just gently start to drop your knees over towards the right, like you're windshield wipering the windshield of a car. And then inhale through center, and exhale, drop your knees to the left. Inhale through center. Exhale, drop to the right. Inhale through center. Exhale to the left. And then inhale through center. Walk your feet back in towards the midline of your mat. Draw your knees in towards your chest. And just give yourself a little hug. You can rock left to right, just massaging the lower back. And then on your next inhale, curl your body up towards the midline. Draw your forehead towards your knees. Scrunch up your face, scrunch up your feet, scrunch up your hands. Get every muscle in your body tight. And then exhale, expand out, take up space on your mat, and come to lie on your back. And take a few deep cleansing breaths. Acknowledging the work that you've done. Acknowledging the effort you've put in. Noticing the places on the mat where the back of your body touches the mat and rests. And just take a few moments here to reconnect with the sense of your body as it rests on the ground. Allow your system to soften and reset. Notice the back of your shoulder blades, the back of your head, back of your hips.
and the soles of your feet. And after a few breaths, slowly begin to draw some movement back into your body. So wiggling fingers, toes, rolling your head from left to right. And then inhale to take a nice long good morning stretch. Really reach from the fingertips to the toe tips. And then exhale and roll over to either side. So either your left or your right, coming into sort of a fetal position, if you will. And for a moment, just pause and acknowledge what you achieved today. Acknowledge the poses that you did, how they felt in your body, and how when you started this process, you may not have thought that what you ended up doing was possible. When you're ready, roll your shoulders more towards the earth, press down to sit up and find an easy seat, whatever shape that is. And gently take your palms to your thighs, find length in your spine. Close your eyes. Notice the connection of your legs to the mat. And then draw your hands towards heart center. Palms pressed against one another. Rest your thumbs on your sternum. And gently bow your head towards your heart. I'm so grateful that you all came out to practice yoga for normal people with me. And I really do hope to see you on the mat again soon. All the love and light in me bows to and honors all of the love and light in each one of you. Namaste.
Thank you, Abby. What a great way to start our day. We do have some questions from people who are in the session, attended the session. And so I thought maybe we could answer a couple of those, and anybody who has further questions, continue to add your questions to the chat. Abby can chat with you on the app throughout the day, and actually as long as this is live. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions, and then Abby, I want you to tell us where else we can find yoga for normal people.
Sure.
But first of all, and I apologize, I don't know who this question is from, but she says, I have a bad hip. What tips do you have for modifying stretching?
Sure. So depending upon what you mean by a bad hip, because hips are three-dimensional, so you've got the front of the hip and the back of the hip, can depend on how you'd like to modify it. The best sort of angle of attack for hip stuff is to only go as far as feels good in your body. So a little bit of pain, especially if you've done PT or physical therapy for any kind of injury that you had, you know that a little bit of pain is always okay. It's when it becomes something that's untenable or sharp or electric feeling that you should stop, that you should change the shape. And you can get into a lot of these shapes without being weight bearing, so you don't have to actually do these with your feet on the floor. I can teach an entire class on my back and still get the same sort of sensation in the poses that you may feel when you do it standing up. So it just depends on what kind of injury you have. It's always best to work with a medical provider to make sure that what you're doing still works for your body. But I'm happy to chat offline to learn more about sort of what is going on and offer up some more sort of distinct tips for that.
Thank you. Another question that we have is really nice yoga and very doable, except for getting up from the floor. Do you have any suggestions for safe and easy ways to get up from the floor?
Sure. So a lot of times as we get older, as we sort of move through our time here, it gets harder and harder to get up from the floor. What I've found, and I work with my mom who is in her 70s, in her mid 70s, and she has actually bad knees. She had both of them replaced. If we're doing some work on the floor, the best way that I've found for her to get up is actually to take her hands off to the side if she's seated, and then roll to all fours
and then take one foot and just slowly move up to standing. It's just, you know, a way to modify the standing. I mean, going from, say, like a Malasana squat to a stand is a lot harder because there's just a lot more muscular energy that's required. But there's plenty of things that you can do using the floor as a way to get up. And in a lot of ways, the sort of functional movement of getting up from the floor is really vital to our well-being as we get older, as we sort of do things in the world, because, you know, if we're down there on the floor with our kids, we got to be able to get up. So finding ways that are accessible, and especially if you have any kind of vertigo stuff going on or any kind of, like, I dealt with vertigo myself, so going slowly when you're getting up from the floor is also really key as well. Don't try to rush it.
Maintaining your safety at all times is really such an important thing, and I think we forget about that. And it's such a nice reminder. Yoga for Normal People reminds us that we don't have to be perfect. We can do what is right. We can do our best. We can do what feels right to us. We can build strength on our own, you know, on our own schedule, our own time. We don't have to measure up to others. And it's such a good message, Abby. Tell us where we can find Yoga for Normal People.
Sure. So if you head over to my site, it's really easy. It's yogafornormalpeople.com. I teach online every week. And for you guys, I'm offering free day passes. I will drop it into the chat in Huva. So you guys can have a free 24-hour access to the library of stuff that I've already recorded. And a lot of the stuff that I do runs the gamut. So I teach everything from, like, restorative, which is really great if you have trouble sleeping or if you deal with anxiety, to a recent series that I've been working on working down anxiety in our bodies. A lot of times we think anxiety lives all up in our heads, but actually it tends to lodge in places in our bodies, and working through some movements can help sort of release that and give us the tools to deal with the world out there by working right here on our mat. And that's sort of what my goal is with teaching Yoga for Normal People, is, like, you don't have to be able to do these poses to be a yogi. You simply have to move in a way that feels good and gives you a little bit more joy and connection to your life. And hopefully I've been able to give you guys those tools. So I'm really grateful to be here.
Well, we are so happy to have you here too, Abby, and you'll we'll be able to find your videos from these sessions in our conference on our YouTube channel starting tomorrow, and also right here on the Huva conference app as well through March. All of our content stays up for about 6 months. So anyone can come back and re-experience, you know, take this yoga practice again with Abby. Abby, thank you so much for being here. We really enjoyed starting our conference with you these last 3 weeks, and then especially today. We appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thank you so much.
And
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So if we started off today getting our bodies in the right position, now it's time to get our mindset in the right position. So I'm really thrilled to introduce Rose Nisker, who is from the app Calm, which you may recognize. Let's see, I'm going to stop Abby's video. There we go. Good morning, Rose. So, good morning.